Welcome, everybody, to our podcast. I am your host, Elias Haddad, and I'm here with my good friend, Dave Conley. Dave, what's up, buddy?
Oh, so good to see you, my brother.
Oh, man, it's been a
Happy birthday. Don't know when this is going to air, but happy day after your birthday. How was your birthday? What do
was
birthdays
good.
mean for you?
Uh, you know, so last year was my 40th, which, when you get the round number
Yeah.
behind the first one, it's
Yeah.
always like weird. It's kind of like, oh, it's another decade. It's gone. And so that one was kind of significant. It's crazy. And this is somebody I would suggest to anyone
Mhm.
that's listening to our show to do. I had a business coach that had me write down what my 40th birthday party is going to be like.
Mhm.
And so I had a vague memory of it. And the paper popped up sometime last year where I wrote it down. And for my 40th, I went to Loveburn, which is, for anyone that doesn't know what Loveburn is, it is a regional Burning Man event in Miami, Florida. Um, it was on the calendar to go at the end of this month. I don't know if they actually canceled it. I think they did. I think they did, right? But my description was being on a beach with my friends and having a good time and all this crazy stuff. The only thing that wasn't there, the only person that wasn't there was my daughter.
Mhm.
But it was a great exercise because he basically had me um, sit behind my desk, close my eyes, and imagine what that was. And I just remember all these thoughts coming into my mind and the story kind of unfolding in my mind. And I was just sitting there. It was, February 9th, 2020, when people used to be able to hang out full moon on a Saturday night on my birthday.
Ooh.
And it was really special. It was really special. So now my 41st birthday, I drove to St. Louis. I was in a car for 5 hours driving to St. Louis to be with my daughter and my girlfriend. So um, it
Nice.
was pretty average, pretty average. So I'm assuming the next nine are going to be that way until like my 50th. And then at my 50th, I'll throw a rager for a 50-year-old man. That could mean something totally different. I don't
That
know what it's going to be,
could be
but
very different than 40. You'll learn a
yeah,
lot in 9 years, I think.
I think so. I think so. And but it was good. My staff got me my favorite cake, which is tres leches, which is three milks.
Ooh.
Ooh, oh, it's so good.
Oh my God.
Uh, I don't know if anybody's ever had that, but go to your local Spanish food store, go to the bakery section, and go get you a tres leches.
Oh my
It
God.
is it is love like no other love has ever been created. And when I was a kid, I
Yeah.
was never a big fan of cake. But
Yeah.
dude, you put that shit in a bowl and throw some milk on it. That was the best thing ever. And that's basically what tres leches is.
Right.
it's like milk in a bowl. But somehow they keep it more. I don't even
I don't
know.
know. I don't know. It's all
It's
magic. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's magic. It's magic. But yeah, so it was a good birthday. Some Star Wars gifts and stuff as usual.
Nice.
Because for anyone that doesn't know, I am a Star Wars fanatic. I probably know way more about Star Wars than any 40-plus-year-old man should ever really know. But it's part of being a nerd, and I like
But
it.
what's special about Star Wars for you? And why Star Wars over other genres or other, like
I, I
cultural.
did. So I think originally it was as a child it came on like TNT on one of these, every Christmas it would come on
Yeah.
all three. So originally when you just watch it, you had Luke Skywalker. Darth Vader was a badass who, as you learn more about Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader, how complicated of a character he is, and then it's just the ultimate storytelling. And when I really got into it, which is kind of crazy, is when Disney bought it, which you would
Wow.
think like, oh, you're a phony because Disney bought this. And but what Disney did is they brought David Fione on, who is the guy who did all of the Clone Wars cartoons.
Mhm.
There's roughly 40 books that are considered canon. Now, canon is considered anything that was written and done after 2014, which is when Disney bought it. If something and anything that's outside of canon is considered legends. Now, if something in canon mentions something in legends, that thing in legends becomes canon. Okay. So what they did, which was really remarkable, is they literally took everything that started from 2014 and connected it. I saw this video on it. It's like they put it on boards. How's this character connected to this person? They made an entire ecosystem. But the story of the story of Star Wars that I really like is the arc of Anakin Skywalker. Everybody thinks it's about Luke, but the story is about Darth Vader and Anakin, who is Luke's father. And it's somebody that basically all this trauma happens to them at the early parts of their lives and makes them into this evil person.
Yeah.
And then there was this moment that Luke saw good in this person, which is essentially there is good in everyone.
Yeah.
And he was able to draw that back out of them. And it's part of my journey as anyone else that's kind of gone through this, gone through like transformational work that I have. And you look at the Luke, the Anakin Skywalker. So there are 20 something books. There's a Clone Wars movie, which is a cartoon, and then Clone Wars animated series, which is about 14 seasons, I think, or 7 seasons, each season, 23 episodes, which I've gone through twice. There are 405 comic books, which I read in chronological order based on when they happened, not when they were written. So I've got stupid knowledge on it. I actually got on a podcast with a Star Wars nerd with one time, and I put him under the table with my knowledge. He was like, "Where did you learn all this stuff?" I was like, COVID happened.
You gotta have a hobby.
I got sick of reading business books is what it came down to. It's like, how many fucking business books can I read? Like, I'm sick of this shit. I've never been a book reader. I'm dyslexic, so it's already hard enough for me to read anyway. So when comics are much easier, obviously, but when reading a book, it's just difficult, right? And I just wanted something different to read, and then I got into it, and my daughter's into it too. So she's it's like our thing now. When she comes in, we watch an hour or two of some Star Wars movie, and she knows shit. Like, she'll sit over here and like she'll be like telling her mom will ask a question. She'll be like, "No, mommy, that's Anakin, and just go into the explanation. I'm like, "You're 4 years old. That's awesome."
You're 4. Well done.
And I'm taking her to Disney this weekend. So we're gonna try to get on the Star Wars. There's some crazy Star Wars ride at Disney that is 22 minutes long. It's a whole experience, and it's acting and a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm excited about that.
Disney, where? Which Disney? Where?
Disney World, the one in Orlando. Yeah. So Disney has a whole Star Wars thing. I'm pretty excited about it. So how's your week been, man? How's everything going?
Good. I mean, I think you saw some of the stuff I've had house guests and have been quite social the last week, and that's really helped sort of my mood and my transition to Miami, and just connecting with people and having friends in town has been really great. And so today's sort of my first day with, everybody gone, and, just having it quiet around the house. And so, it's been super good, super social. And, it gets, part of it is also weird because, we're still in weird times with COVID and the rest of it. And so you have to think a lot about it, but I'm also in the Wild West of Miami where they do not care. Right. So, there's like a lot of confusing perspectives of, like what's going on. And just seeing the importance of people and connection and just being around humans and how dysfunctional somebody can get really quickly when it's like when without humans around. It makes me rethink any kind of incarceration, right?
Oh my gosh,
I can choose to leave this place and it's making me a little nuts, right?
Yeah. And Florida's at least somewhat open. They're just
right.
Like, F it, let's just go.
Yeah, exactly.
The Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah, right. Like it just they they do not care. It's just
what science?
We're just rolling. Yeah, right. It's the most maddening thing. It's like, okay, here's all the science and all this evidence, and we're gonna be like, meh, you know what? Economy. And I'm like, oh God, we don't have to choose. Like, we are a really wealthy nation. Like we don't have to. These are false choices.
Yeah, it's crazy to kind of see where society has taken us and the politicalization of science, which is
Yeah,
kind of ridiculous.
that's
And
so
what we've
crazy.
and it's kind of it happened actually on the both the left and the right, in the sense
Hmm.
that if Trump said it, everybody on the left was like, no, no, we're not going to do it just because Trump said it. You know what I mean? And then the right was like, just whatever. I don't have any excuses for that, but they're not science.
Yeah,
But
I mean, it
the
just
right
seems
is
to
like, we
start
did.
with no and like weird, twisted, strange logic and like simple and like, oh man, things can be really complicated and things, people can be wrong, and just because they're wrong to begin with, it doesn't mean we're going to stop learning and
Yeah.
like change new things. And it just really, it starts with like, no. And I'm like, oh my God, like we can't even, agree on reality sometimes. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh,
Well,
well,
it's
let's,
kind of this. We've lost this ability to make sense as humans. I don't know what the deal is, and we're tribal people, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
think our natural urge is to get to align with the tribe. And what's happened is like, I think I mentioned this before to you, is like the biggest growing religion in the world right now is unaffiliated. So
Right.
like, people, there is something, but people are just unaffiliated with any specific religion, and that's kind of happening with what's happened is they went from unaffiliated religiously, they went to affiliated politically,
Yeah.
and politics has become their religion, and it's just like, dude,
And
that's
there's
not a
no
hill.
compromise in religion, right? Like, religion doesn't
Hmm.
start with like, well, let's try something new. Like, it's based on faith and faith alone, right? And if something's based on faith, you start challenging somebody's beliefs and people, dig in on their beliefs.
Hmm.
And so like changes in evolution in religion is just a very slow and deliberate process. Whereas, things that happen in politics, and politics as a religion, like we have to address things quickly and
Yeah.
like we have to think about societal, things. And
Hmm.
it's frustrating to me that we used to be able to agree on the problems
Mm.
and disagree on the solutions, but come up with like, okay, like how might this work, right? Like how can we, solve something, right? Or improve something, or and instead it's turned into very fixed beliefs on things, even when those are just wrong. I'm
Yeah,
like, oh my
doesn't matter.
God. Yeah. And it's like, oh, we can't even agree on what the issues are,
Hmm.
what the problems are. It's like, if we could just talk about some of the problems,
Maybe we
uh,
can solve some issues.
right. Like
It.
I don't know any sociopath out there that says, okay, like what we really need to do is kill a lot more people or pollute a lot more, or
Mm.
make sure people stay in poverty, or like most people I think would reasonably say that pollution sucks, and there's, or like, or like poverty, like the more poverty we have, not good, right? So like we can't even seem to like even discuss some of these things without it causing like brain aneurysms. And I'm like, oh my God, like what
Yeah,
what happened?
it is what happened to people. And I think there is there is a movement to like this conscious awareness that this is happening. And there's a great thing, you should look it up. It's called integral theory. I can't remember the guy's name. If I was sitting in front of my computer, I'd look him up. But basically what he says, what he's saying is that every society builds on the previous society, taking the best of the previous society and then building on to the next society, right?
Oh, we are
And
definitely not doing that.
and that's exactly his point
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
And in order to hit that tipping point, he says, is that 10% of the population has to be on to the movement of the next better society. And an example that he gave was, is like the civil rights movement of the 1960s. yes, there was great things that came from the civil rights movements, but now, for example, the far left has taken it too far, where they will basically stifle any, Berkeley, for example, is a fine example of a college that has been known for years to be able to go discuss really um, controversial subjects, and just bringing in controversial people. And now they won't bring in anyone. Milo Yiannopoulos, the guy that was like basically an online troll, was stopped from going to Berkeley, and they basically stifled his ability to speak, even though it's absolute garbage of what he's saying, and it's complete bullshit. There's actually
Like,
literally
this is garbage. Yeah.
well, he literally, he literally had I can't remember what magazine it was, but he basically admitted years ago before he got famous is that he's just saying this shit to get a rise out of people.
That's the thing, right? I will say, like, right now, like, we are not that evolved from, like 40,000 years ago, not that evolved, right? Yet our ability and capabilities of connecting with, like, the larger tribe, let's call it that way, is unlimited, right?
Mm-hmm.
And certain social mores used to happen, right? Like, if you were if you didn't keep some of the inside voice on the inside,
Yeah.
if you were a troublemaker, if you were like slinging shit, if you were just asshole, got evicted from the tribe, like, it could have been like a death sentence. Like, somebody could just brain you in the middle of the night, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so for most of our existence, there was shaming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at this point in society, there are no consequences. And so, like, the inner asshole is just there, and it doesn't make it like inflammatory speech. There used to be a control on that, like a societal control that
Yeah.
society said, actually, we all do get better and live together in a better way when there are some limits to like speech and some, right? Like some
Yeah.
governing factor that just
Yeah.
says, okay, asshole has consequence, right? Now, asshole has no consequence. If asshole has zero consequence,
It's
then
actually the opposite of
we're in
consequence if you
trouble.
think about it. It's the opposite of consequence, because now being an asshole gets you
It's
more
celebrated.
likes, and it
Right.
gets you more attention, and it gets you more, like, it's just like what he, uh it's just like he Nopolis said was is that like he's just saying it because it gets him more likes.
Right.
It's more inflammatory. The more inflammatory you can become, it's the more attention you get, and that's kind of, we're an attention driven society. I don't know. Like, I think that there are uh, I I watched people lose their minds in 2020 online. Like,
Yes.
and my close friends,
Still,
and
I
I'm
mean, still
like,
losing their
still
minds. Yeah.
not as bad as it was. Like,
I
so
disagree. Like, the more people I'm talking to, and I'm reflecting on myself as well, because I've done some, some probably unwise moves here at the top of 2021. In that I moved states, right? Like,
yeah.
while recovering from surgery, right? So probably, pretty unwise to like kick out all of my social support, in the middle of a pandemic, right? So I made some odd choices, and have some consequences to them. What I'm realizing is when I dig into a number of my friends, and really like sit them down and like really start talking and talk deep with them, I'm finding like more and more deeper dysfunction, right? Like we can keep like a thin candy shell on top of this. But I saw people losing their minds online last year for sure. But what I'm seeing now is more systemic, it's deeper, and it's more damaging. Like, I think, like, we are going to have mental health fallout from this period of history for a long time. And it
Yeah.
may change our society in different
Mm,
ways.
yeah.
So like I think actually like the wounds are getting deeper and weirder.
Yeah, I had a couple of friends of mine that fell into the QAnon stuff,
Yeah.
and like smart people,
Right.
smart
Oh my
people,
God. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'm like,
what?
I literally had this conversation on a Facebook Messenger with one of my friends, and she was blasting Bill Gates. And I'm like, do you really think that Bill
Why?
Gates needs any more money? I saw the best
No,
meme.
not
I saw
yeah.
the best
Right.
meme where it was like, so the guy that basically invented the software that gave you the ability to bash him and probably has single-handedly raised more money and done more for humans is created this virus just because he wants to put a chip inside you. This is a serious conversation. This is a person that has a fucking
Oh,
bachelor's and a master's degree. That's what it's like.
right. I know.
And I'm
Right.
just like,
Oh, perfectly smart people. And I, like we're always going to have people who believe in the conspiracy theories. And I was
yeah,
watching a guy talking about like, what is this? Like, where does this come from? Like, why does it, like root deeply into a certain selection of population, right? And he said that there is a disbelief from a percentage of the population that life, like our world, right, and how it functions is essentially, perverse incentives, probably mostly driven economically, and pure chaos, right? Like there
mm,
is no order really to like what happens. Like government is barely a governor on like the general direction of the chaos of humanity, right? It is absolutely, and yet because of mass communication, the world seems smaller and almost simpler. So there must be simple reasons why all of this is connected and all of this
yeah,
is run by the secret cabals, because that's the only thing that makes sense to them. And I'm
yeah,
like, oh, and then you throw in some fear on top of that. It's like, oh my God, like, of course they're going to get sucked into like, oh, that makes sense. And like, that makes sense. And then you put them online and you get enough people in the echo chamber. Like, you get
yeah,
enough people to be like, oh, but me and dozens or hundreds or thousands of my friends think the same way I do, then you're like, you know what? It must be true, right? Like that
yeah,
critical thinking doesn't pop them out because you're not being subject to scrutiny. Nobody's telling you like that's nuts. And even if they are, your fear and uncertainty and doubt and coupled with social media being able to like get you into echo chambers really screws with people. And I'm like, oh,
yeah.
what?
I
So your friend, you had friends that dropped into the crazy.
Oh my gosh, it was. I mean, there's a couple of people that I'm not like personal friends with, but one person I was really good personal friends with. She
Yeah.
finally got walked away from the ledge. I think um, there was. It's really funny because just talking to some people that were following QAnon but wouldn't admit it. Like I could see, like, you know what I mean? They're like,
They,
something's
they were
coming.
they were closet
They're
QAnon.
like,
It's like, I
something's
believe in
coming.
Pizzagate, but I'm not going to tell
Yeah.
anybody.
Yeah, they're like something's coming. You just watch election day, and I'm like, what? What's gonna happen? Or like Trump's gonna do something, and then like you see the post like after the insurrection, and nobody got after the
Nothing.
20th, nobody got pardoned or anything, and they basically
Right.
left holding the bag, and and I just seeing how much it infiltrated people, seeing how much it really affected people. It broke my like when COVID first happened.
Yeah.
I was joking about COVID in January.
Oh, for
I
sure.
yeah, I jokingly bought a gas mask, right? Like a real gas mask, and put it on so I can take an Instagram picture.
Yeah.
So, and I took a picture of myself. I was like, guys, COVID's coming, like laughing. That was in January, February, somewhere around there.
Right.
And then the lockdowns started happening, and what was going to be the lockdowns. And I'll tell you, I had 2 or 3 nights of sleepless nights. I was like, yeah, I've got millions in loans that
Yep.
I was like, the economy's about to just eat shit,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna be bankrupt at 40 years old. I was like, that's what's gonna happen. Is like the next, I'm not gonna be able to pay my bills.
Right.
What ended up being actually kind of the opposite of what happened. The real estate market went gangbusters for some God knows reason, its inventory and all other things. But you watched I watched the insanity unfold, and I was posting videos almost on a daily or every other day basis when the lockdowns were going on about like coming together. This
Mhm.
should be like 9/11. We should be putting American
Totally.
flags in front of our houses
Yeah.
and all this stuff. It went the opposite direction, like 180 degrees of what I expected it to happen. People were losing their shit. They were like, we
Yeah.
shouldn't, like uh, the masks became a debate
Freedom.
and
I'm
all
like, oh.
freedom and like I'm like, what the like, I look at New Zealand and I'm so
Oh, and
pissed.
they treated this as a patriotic duty, right? To all out war against the virus, and they're fine, right? Like they're
I'm
walking around like nothing's going on.
zero cases, zero
Unbelievable.
cases in New Zealand right now. And the
It's
funny
like
thing was, is
all
like
we
a
can
couple
do
years
is just
ago,
kill people. You know, like
yeah,
all we can do, like globally, like looking at what the United States has done is just criminal.
yeah,
Like richest country, most powerful country, great country, and what we've done is decide that a huge collection of our citizens aren't um, uh, will just die, and
yeah,
we're the only country that's like that, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
every other country is like, no, we believe in life, right? Like we think that human beings are important. We're just like, oh, I gotta go shopping, so let's like
yeah.
kill a bunch of people. I'm like, oh my
Yeah,
god.
it's like after 9/11, what did George Bush say? Or was it after 9/11 or was it after the 2008 crash? He's like, you guys just need to go shopping. It's like
Right.
that doesn't that
Not
doesn't fix
helpful.
shit. That's literally the opposite of what Americans need to be doing. Like we've become such a consumer centric. I argue this all the
And
time because I
and
I I
now we are in this hybridization. Like Miami is like doing, whatever, right? Some communities are quite locked down, some aren't. So it's this patchwork of stuff that is actually not working, right?
mhm,
So like we know what actually works. And this patchwork of weirdness in different communities all over the place is not working. And now people are like going, see, masks don't work or curfews don't work or this don't work. It's like, yeah, because it's all these half-ass measures means that
yeah,
this thing keeps on multiplying. Like it is actually a math problem. Like this is solvable because most nations have solved it.
yeah. And it's crazy. I know I I'm not so I know this is kind of out there, maybe conspiracy theory-ish, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist by any means.
Yeah.
But part of me is like, maybe China created this shit because they knew exactly how America was going to react. They knew
Right.
American exceptionalism was going to come into play.
Right.
Um, there's a guy that wrote a book about pandemics that literally everything played out exactly how the book played out. He was on Joe Rogan's show
Mm,
right when the pandemic hit, and
right.
he's like, "Here's what's going to happen, and if we don't do this, 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 and this, this is what happens." And it's to the T to almost what the book said. And part of me was like, man, maybe China was wanting to get, because China knew they could do a lockdown. I mean, they can do those
Oh yeah. Yeah, they just
draconian measures.
right.
China was supposed to surpass our economy in 2020, in 2030. I think it's probably going to happen in 2025 now
Right now. Yeah,
because
yeah.
their economy is moving and their people, well, I mean, on whether they wanted to or not, did their lockdowns like to an
Yeah,
extreme actually, where I
totally.
mean, there's no telling how many people died in China. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a I mean, it is China's fault. Let's not let's but
Let's not sugarcoat
but
it.
let's
That's
let's just sugarcoat it. But
what
we
we've
fucked it
learned
up.
is don't eat bats.
Yeah,
It's a
it's like
terrible
we
idea.
fucked it up. We fucked
Yeah,
it up, and it's
right.
kind of like how what is something individuals can do? What can I do? What can our listeners do to like make one little step better for everybody in society? Like, what is that step? What is the thing that we can do to be like, the golden rule obviously plays into this more than anything.
There is
Um,
a certain amount of like compassion that I ask for, and I'm not sure where that comes from, right? Like, like how can we be more compassionate to our neighbors? How can we be more compassionate and actually make some sacrifices? How can we, make it better for others? And I don't know what that is, right? Um,
yeah, yeah,
uh,
that's not,
Other than being an example for others, right?
yeah,
It's like, just being an example and maybe flexing into it. There's a practice that God, a guy wrote a blog about it. I gotta find out what that is. Google will tell me. But he like took out like $1,000, right? or he saved up $1,000. And like every day he made it his job to like give away $20. But he had rules, right? Like $20 had to, like make a difference, like, so there were some rules about giving away this $20. And so getting into this practice of being more generous and giving has transformed his life, right? Um, so I think, maybe it's a siren call right now to see how you can do just regular, giving back, right? I know when I get into the practice of like giving blood, I have a rare blood type. When I get
Mhm.
into the practice, it makes me feel really good, right? Because my
Yeah.
blood is actually used for like premature children and things because it's just rare, right? um, when I get into the practice of mentoring others, I'm sought out, and it feels really good to like give back. So maybe there's a certain generosity that we can like bring back and encourage for, like, what's one kind act that is completely selfless that you can do today?
Yeah, something more than just paying for the guy's Starbucks behind you.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like stretch a little, baby. Right.
I'm kind of, there's I bounce back from these moments of just giving up on society, on
Right.
on humans, and other times I'm kind of like, maybe we can get through this, and
We can, yeah, we can. Like, if we keep the optimism, like the pessimism and the complacency and the uh, being like dark about it just feeds on itself, right? Like,
yeah,
and you don't want to be unreasonably like happy, because that's cray too, right?
yeah.
um but
I
recognizing that it's painful and it sucks, and you know what, there are things that we can do today that can be helpful so that we can have an actual better tomorrow, right?
Exactly. I feel like, I don't think people realize the despair that a lot of people are going through right now.
Yeah.
Like and they're not on social media telling you about their despair. I think that what you saying about there being probably decades of mental health issues that are going to arise from this
Yeah, for
is
sure.
more than we know right now. I mean, I see people, like, meet them in person, bump into people, and get these
Yeah.
weird vibes off people, and not negative vibes, but just
Yeah.
like you can sense their despair.
Mhm.
I have friends that are, one of my girlfriend's friends. She does not. She's having anxiety attacks on a regular basis because of COVID. She's
Yeah.
worried about giving COVID to her parents. She doesn't get to see her parents. Like, there is, to the extreme of the non-mask wearing people, there's extremes of the other
Oh,
side
yeah, of
of,
the freaked out. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Right.
living in fear every single
Every
day.
day. Yeah. Right.
That lasted, I mean, when COVID first happened, every time I got a sore throat, which kind of happened every time I smoked a joint or something.
Of
So
course.
so I was like, oh God, I think I got COVID.
I've got
Oh, my
COVID.
chest
Yeah.
hurts. I was like, oh no, I just smoked a joint. So,
Right. Oh, yeah, I'm
so
fine.
I was super paranoid for a little while. So I understand the paranoia, but then there came a point of, like, you know, letting go of that emotion of fear. And I was able to do that. And I'm like, how many people in the world have not been able to
Yeah.
get to that point yet? How many people are like, I mean, they can't even go to, whatever you may think about religion,
Yeah.
they can't even go to that place that gives them sanctuary,
That
you know,
comfort. Right.
that comfort. So, like, it's I I feel bad right now. Like, I'm not like laughing at it in any way, but I'm just kind of like almost helpless to these people that we probably can't even reach. You
Yeah.
know, the person that you could just be like, look, it's gonna be okay. They don't have that person to give them a hug. There's people out there scared to give hugs, and it's, that was one of the things in Mexico that, like, it was like, wow, I'm hugging people. Like, it was
Yes.
something that I hadn't done in so long, there's something to it. And before I went to Mexico, I was in Yosemite with a group of people that went through a bunch of transformational work with me as well. And it was, one of my friends was going through a really bad depression standpoint at that point, and he was like, "This is just the hugs that he was able to get, the love that he was able to feel, just was instrumental and immense to him, and it was just like it's so important to him." And it's like, God, how many people are like that right now? Like, and I think that's something maybe our viewers, that's one thing that maybe people should do. That's a step right there. It's just call somebody
Hmm.
that you haven't talked to in a while,
In a
you
while.
know,
Yeah.
that's not posting on Facebook, you know,
Hmm.
because the shit that you see on Facebook is bullshit.
True.
Everything's
It's
bullshit.
what
Back to my
bullshit. It's back to the yes. It's all bullshit.
you know, and I think that when we're at this point of being seeing society collapse around us, this is the point that we have to connect to people,
Yeah.
especially people we haven't talked to in a long time, especially people that you know in the past have had issues. They still probably do have issues. God knows what the drug issues are now, like the alcohol and the other substance abuses that may be occurring out in the world right now that we don't even see,
Yeah.
and people are just withering away in their living rooms, and we don't even know it. And
Oh, for
it's
sure.
it's
Talked to a
heartbreaking.
really, a good friend of mine, and she's ended up being a caregiver right now for somebody with COVID in her, her family, and it's caused a lot more complications. And she's white knuckling it through it. And so, I know I can speak for myself. Like all of the different changes that I've voluntarily put into my life.
Mm,
I had a really, really dark few weeks here.
yeah,
And like I'm finally feeling like I'm getting a bit, directionally in a much better, direction. Um, and I think part of the things that we tend to do is isolate when we're in, particularly men, when we're in pain, we tend to isolate. And I
mm,
know one of the things that I needed to learn to do was when I was at my worst and feeling my worst, just to pick up the phone and call almost anyone, um, and start talking and just start
yeah,
talking. And
yeah,
that's the the only thing that I finally realized that I think is harder for people is when you might need professional help, like
mm.
really like
Especially
getting,
men.
especially men. I'm like, you know what? Go ahead and like get that stuff in early. I was using every tool in my tool chest, every piece of self care, everything that I could think of, and I was challenged. And it wasn't until I started getting some professionals involved, counselors and therapists and doctors and people in the medical field, uh, or at least in the counseling field, right?
Yeah,
You can, that's, religion or wherever, like wherever you find, like your counsel, your safe, your safe spaces for really unloading, um, or support groups. They're there. They are there.
yeah,
And that has provided more of a grounding for me and more of a sanity, because now I have a bit more of a language as to what's going on, rather than just saying, everything's bullshit, which I
yeah,
totally say myself. I'm like, oh, now I understand why I feel this way. And it
mm,
makes me feel less cray cray. And that in
yeah,
itself like helps out. So what have we learned? Go get some help and reach out to
yeah.
friends, and also reach out yourself. Like there's,
Yeah,
like there's three things to do today, right? Reach out yourself, reach out to someone else, and seek professionals early.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think there's definitely for men, like I haven't been to a therapist in a long, long time. Um, I've but I do have guys that I call, like
Yeah,
some good friends of mine that I'm just like, hey man, this is what I'm feeling. This is how,
totally.
and it's hard for men to find vulnerability, to express vulnerability, and it's something that I constantly work on. And it's not I catch myself just being an asshole every now and then. Don't get me wrong, but
Right.
there are times where I'm just like, I I try to like open my heart to what people are trying to tell me, and I try to open, and I think a lot of it comes from, um, your ego is there to protect you, right? It's this
Mm,
thing that is there to, it remembers when your was broken. It
right.
remembers when you're sad, and it's doing everything it can to make you not feel that pain,
Right.
when you as an individual should be doing actually the opposite of that, is leaning into it. Because
Thank
the
you for
second
saying
you,
that. Yeah,
yeah,
thank you for saying that. Is that there is, like we spend a lot of time avoiding pain. We spend a lot of
mm,
time, drinking it away, medicating it away, avoiding, and distracting, right? And there's there is a purpose to pain. It's a signal, right? It's a signal to
mm,
say, hey, pay attention, right? This is painful, and it's about, like, pain is okay, and leaning into it is okay. It's There are points though, that, like, if it goes on too long and you lose perspective and you lose like significant quality of life, that's no bueno. That's no good, right?
yeah.
But pain, yeah. Thank you for saying that, because it's like leaning into it is important.
Yeah, I think when you mentioned that pain is a, to, is it let you know something wrong. I think of like twisting my ankle, or like in a
Yeah.
position where you twist yourself and it's like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. But when it comes to emotional pain, there, I actually remember an exercise that I did, and I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I was laying in bed and I was thinking of what had happened with my business, and
Hmm.
really like, I was like, fuck it, I am gonna think about this where it hurts. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna force myself to hurt. Like right now, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna force myself to hurt. And I really started thinking through the process of what I did, all the things that had happened. Because before I would just be like, fuck it, move on, next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing. Right.
Yeah.
And the second that I really went through the process of like, what hurts, what really hurt about this, it wasn't about losing the money. That didn't hurt that much. It was realizing that how was I showing up for people wasn't the way I was really showing up for people. Like, my thought of who I was to these people wasn't actually what it was. And then that's where I realized that pain came from, was is that those relationships, I don't want to say were fake or bullshit, but that my thought, my vision of that relationship wasn't equal to the people that I was working with.
Mm,
And and then when I step back, it's like, okay, ego made you think that everybody loves you. Ego made you think that this is a good idea. But as soon as I leaned into it, and as soon as I really like felt the pain, almost to the point where I like almost wanted to like tear up and cry, it it released. I was able to forgive anyone that had anything to do with it, and my life has been awesome. Like, my business life has been great. Like, it's been, granted, I had a lawsuit that I had to deal with through most of 2020, but even that was as like, there was a day of just like, all right, why does this hurt? Like, what's the
yeah.
hurt coming from?
Yeah.
And identifying it, really like kind of digging into it, helped release it. And I try to do that in anything that I'm doing now. If I find something that is like really hurtful, or just something that comes up in my memory, like even if it's something trauma from when I was a kid or in college or whatever, like I lean into it now. Like, I'm like, all right, why does this hurt? Like, why am I thinking about this? Why am I like? And then when I really, instead of just kind of burying it down deep down and just forgetting about it, and it's been a unbelievable relief to life, and and my ability to like just connect with other people, and that's the hardest part,
That's a
is
good rapid change. I think that's unusual. How so just thinking it changed it for you.
yeah, it's more of like not just thinking about it, but
Yeah.
like really coming into, okay, so I think about my to give somebody some brief history. I had a 240 person real estate office that I'd built from 23 agents. And I left a franchise brand and lost about 60% of my agents to somebody that was like a mother and a mentor to me. Opened up basically the same office, and um, took 60% of those agents. And then you're thinking like that's 60% of your income walked out the door.
Yeah.
So that's how I originally processed that, right? But then the real pain came from was is like, wow, I thought these people were my friends. Like I thought they were,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
they're really just employees, or contractors that were working for me. So then that was what helped me kind of like go break down, be like, all right, what was this relationship? What was what were the mistakes that I've made in that relationship?
Mm.
And even and how can I make the agents that I have work, or how can I not make that mistake again with the agents that work with me now?
Here you
And
go. That's beautiful because you took it from like victim or being subject to saying, hey, this actually isn't about me by and large, right? What are some
mhm,
things that I can do today? Where do I have actual agency that that I can learn from, and what can I change going forward? I think that's I had a big relationship kick over at the top of COVID in 2020, and really thought it was going to be a big permanent thing, and um, it went very quickly and went very sideways uh, after several months, after a few months, and that whole process allowed me to actually step back and look at how I am in relationships,
mhm.
and my heart opened up so much more. It's like, what are the things that I might do differently? I learned all about attachment theory and how I'm attracted to certain people, and like how other types of people that if how they love differently will do better for me,
Oh
and
wow.
that will allow me to be like actually better in relationship. It allows me to actually like oh, like what kind of relationship might this look like with this person, and I can head off I can head off dates immediately, saying, oh,
Mm,
I may be attracted to this person, but actually this isn't it can't be a long-term thing because we just treat love differently.
mm,
um, and uh, and then recognizing the things about myself, like when I lose myself in a relationship, when I stop doing some of the things that provide the best for me, the things that fill my well, and the things that take care of me best, the things that I'm responsible for. If I start losing those when I get into a relationship, that's not an additive, right? Like that's not a 1 + 1 = 3. That's
yeah,
a 0.25 and a point 0.5 equals like a point 0.1, right?
yeah, yeah,
um, so that's what I love about what you said. It's like, okay, I've had this pain, I had this thing happen. What can I learn from it? What can I change, and how can I actually be happier and healthier afterwards?
yeah, yeah. I think something that I heard just recently is like an L doesn't have to be a loss; it could be a lesson. And uh,
Oh,
so and if really every mistake is a lesson if you
yeah.
let it be. If you keep making the same mistake, it's not, and i I was mentoring a young man, um, in his early 20s, and he's like, what's the best piece of advice that you can give me? He's like, don't be scared to fail, man. Failing is the best thing that can happen to you because you learn way more from failure, way
Right.
more. I mean, I was always procrastination tends to be a lot more people are afraid to fail than they
Mhm.
are afraid to do the actual thing. You know what I mean? It's I've seen it happen with close friends. Even my brother, he has a business that he wanted to start. He never started it because he was more scared to fail than he was to actually do the work.
Right.
Completely capable of doing it. So I think there's and I mean, I'm probably one of the worst procrastinators when it comes to doing certain things. But failure, I I fucking love it. Actually, I don't mind it. Like, because I learned
It's like
so
you've
much
learned,
from it.
don't do that.
Yeah, it's like you if you not, I can't say I love it, but I learned to embrace it. And I especially if you're an entrepreneur, like if you're not willing to fail, you're not going to be a good entrepreneur, because that first step. I mean, granted, some people go and do a job and or create a business, and they just it's the best thing ever, and they knock it out of the park. And it happened to me, and like I built a business, and it was my first real, like when I look at all the other businesses that failed before that, people don't ever ask me about those businesses. Like I have several businesses that failed that just didn't even get off the ground, that I lost
Right.
tons of money on, but they
Right.
just see, oh, you built this massive company, and it's like, well, if you only knew the stupid shit I did before I did this one.
Exactly.
But then you get to the top of the hill, top of the mountain, and you're like, oh, I can do anything. And then that's where your ego takes over, and
Mm.
that's where the mistakes come. And the mistake is to not let it be a lesson. Really, that's the mistake. It's not the actual act that occurred. The mistake is not letting it be a lesson and learning from it. And it's been, that's what I tell all my young mentorees out there, is like, just don't be afraid to fail, especially when you're young. God, you could fuck up so much when you're in your 20s. You could screw up so much. You know what I mean? Like when I was
Yeah.
22 years old, I opened my first business, failed miserably. You know what I mean? Like miserably failed, like, and then everything else was just kind of average. And then something will come together, something will click. And just having the fortitude to keep going, and having the fortitude to like be okay with the failure, and not, I think people, the um after what happened after my brand name change, like a lot of people didn't expect me to come back. um and that motivated me, because like you know it was one of the things that kind of inspired me to want to come back and do big things.
Yeah.
And it still motivates me now. Like I'm highly competitive. I see my competitiveness in my daughter too, which drives me fucking crazy. But it's an easy way to get into the car, be like, let's race to the car. First one to the car wins. First one to sit at the dinner table wins. So it works out well. But it is just driving force to be willing to like pick up, get back on that horse, keep on getting up. It's the thing. I
If
think.
people want to know more about you, how do they do that?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I do have a website, which is
Mhm.
eliashaddad.com. And catch me. Actually, my Instagram is the best way to get a hold of me, at ELIHADDAD, Eli Haddad, at Eli Haddad. Elias was taken.
Wow.
Elias Haddad. How about you?
Limitless. HTTPS LIMITL.ES. Kind of cool, right?
Yeah, I like that.
Limitless without the last S. No .com, none of that. If that's
Yeah,
like, not finding you, just go to davidcc.com. It'll redirect you.
nice, nice. Yeah. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us. Dave, thanks for jumping on here. Look forward to next week. Please subscribe to our channel, and we look forward to hearing from y'all.